Hello, BookTube. Sorry for the interruption in your regularly scheduled program. Those of you who may not have been paying close attention won't know that I took Frida Bean and went up to the old farmhouse in Vermont, to the home of Richardson Reeves, of Mark Richardson, a fellow booktuber and a good friend. And as usual, the family pampered us and we had a wonderful time. So I wouldn't change anything except that it disrupts, 3 or 4 videos a day. And while I was gone, the mail was accumulating, box after box after box, mail carton after mail carton after mail carton, to the point where I don't think we can do all of these books in one video. I'm going to give it a try and see. I'm going to see how far I can get in one video. So we're going to do a lot of mail. Let's do a lot of mail to say welcome back. It was an absolutely wonderful time. Okay, so what this first one? The very first thing out of the gate, we have to tear it apart like a wild beast. But that's all right. I haven't even looked at these various tubs. They were all just piled. And my surly houseboy piled them up for me while I was gone. So I have no idea. All right, what is our very first one? Oh, our very first one is a romance. Excellent. I get romance novels in the mail. Those of you who may be new to the channel and don't know that, I get romance novels in the mail, and that makes Steve very happy. So this is from St. Martin's Press. This comes out at the end of February, and it is Wild Wild Rake by Jana McGregor. This is part of the Caversham Heiresses series, which, let's see here, is... Oh, there are quite a few. The Rogue Most Wanted, The Good, the Bad, and the Duke, The Luck of the Bride Who Got Lucky, The Bad Luck Bride. I've read a couple of those, I think. This is Wild Wild Rake. A very purple cover. Let's see here. Jana McGregor concludes her beloved Caversham Heiresses series with this book. So this is the last one. She'll go on to another series from here. It's emotional, sweeping, witty, and sharp. Everything readers have come to expect from this novelist. And let's see, what is the plot? What is the plot? Her first marriage was an epic fail. So was mine, to Deb. Also, the second marriage to Deb was an epic fail, and the third one, and the fourth one as well. Fifth one had its moments. Sixth one was a disaster. Lady Avalon Warwick never did love her husband. Arrogant, selfish, and cruel. It's a blessing when she's widowed and left to raise her son all by herself. Atrocious sentence, but you get the point. She is not arrogant, selfish, or cruel, and the blessing is not arrogant, selfish, or cruel. We're supposed to know that describes her late husband. Finally, Avalon can live freely and do the work she loves, helping fallen women become businesswomen. She's lived these past 10 years with no desire to remarry. That is, until Mr. Devon Ferris comes to town. Can he convince her to take another chance at happily ever after? Okay. All right. So, a sudsy romance. The premise. Those of you who are familiar, maybe, with the actual history of, I'm assuming this is a Regency romance. Let's see if it even gives a date. It gives a date of 1805. The story starts in 1805. So those of you who are familiar with the actual history of that time period will know that will have noted the 10 or 11 anachronisms just in the plot description. But it doesn't matter. With sudsy romances like this, with lovely covers like that, you want to suspend your disbelief quite a bit, violently. You want to. But that's great. I don't get all of the mass market romances that I would like. When I go to my local Barnes and Noble, I see lots of romances in mass market that I don't get in the mail, and it's always a little nerve-wracking because I'm looking at a display of new romances at Barnes and Noble, and I'm wondering if I'm going to get these books in the mail. You don't want to be a customer who returns a mass market paperback, but anyway, let's see here. Okay. All right, what have we got here? Well, I don't think we're going to do all of these books in one video. Not at all. I even had to pause a bit with the Bean before I dove into the mail to sort of catch my breath after Vermont. Let's see here. This comes out in early March. This is Upstream by Dan Heath. The quest to solve problems before they happen. So often in life we get stuck in a cycle of response. We put out fires, we deal with emergencies, we stay downstream, handling one problem after another, but we never make our way upstream to fix the systems that caused the problems. Cops chase robbers, doctors treat patients with chronic illnesses, and call center reps address customer complaints. But many crimes, chronic illnesses, and customer complaints are preventable. So why do our efforts skew so heavily toward reaction rather than prevention? Okay, so who is Dan Heath when he's at home? He and his brother Chip have written 4 New York Times best-selling books, including Made to Stick, Switch, Decisive, and The Power of Moments. He is a senior fellow at Duke University's Case Center, which supports entrepreneurs fighting for social good, and he lives in Durham, North Carolina. Okay, so he's a best-selling author, and he's been at this before. We'll see if this has anything other than self-evident platitudes to offer. Certainly, the question in the pub sheet, why do we concentrate on downstream solutions instead of upstream solutions, is the answer to that question is so obvious it barely needs stating. So I'm hoping that the book goes a little deeper. All right, let's see. Let's see what this next one is. On this Monday, right? This is Monday. when you're on effectively a vacation, you lose track of time. You lose track of what actual day it is. All right, so what have we got here? Good Lord. Okay, we have, this next one is, wow, this is lovely. This next one is another example of what we're in mid-February now. I can certainly call a publishing trend of 2020, which is works in translation, works translated into English. I've gotten more in the last month and a half than I got in half a year or more last year. So, and this is another one of those. This is Serenade for Nadia by Zulfu Livaneli. It's you can't really tell it through the camera screen, but it's a matte textured thing from Other Press. This is obviously a finished paperback. It's obviously, this is going to be $18 as a paperback. And it has, I don't know if you can make that out, but it has like 20 sheets of publicity material with it. Why on earth does it have this much publicity material? It certainly does not need it. Oh my God, look at all this stuff. All right, well, let's see if we can find something about the book itself. This is from one of Turkey's most celebrated voices of resistance. Best-selling author, filmmaker, composer, and former independent member of parliament. And this is an eye-opening novel based on the real-life sinking of the refugee ship Struma during World War II, in which 800 Jewish refugees fleeing Romania for Palestine perished when a Russian torpedo sank their ship, stranded off the coast of Turkey as the UK and Turkey fought over its fate. A riveting exhumation of this heartbreaking episode in history, Serenade for Nadia helped draw national attention to this long-ignored tragedy, leading to the first state-level commemoration and acceptance of responsibility when it was published in Turkey, which was when? When was this published in Turkey? This is translated from the Turkish by Brendan Freely, and it was published in Turkey in 2011. Okay, great. So we have a very notorious and popular Turkish novel, and with another novel attached to it in the way of publicity material. That is downright strange. I only need this. And that sounds absolutely fascinating, but once again, it raises the normal question that I have in after descriptions like this, which is this book meant to be critic-proof? It's the exhumation of an actual historical event. It led to an official day of commemoration. It led to an act of Turkish parliament. But it's a novel. Even if it were a history, it would still be vulnerable to criticism. But a novel can be about things like that, but a novel has to have well fleshed out characters. It has to have an emotional arc that is both believable and involving. You don't get a pass on those just because you're writing about something virtuous. So I'll have to see. I'll have to see what's going on there. Let's see here. Actually, since there are 3 gigantically full mail tubs, maybe 3 videos are in order, rather than worry about getting this all done at once. Let's see. All right, this next one is also a March release. This is another trade paperback original. That's fantastic. This is Joe Jakeman. This is Safe House. This will be another thriller. Yeah, this is a trade paperback release. It comes out in early March. In her debut thriller, The Ex's Revenge, Joe Jakeman explored how far 3 women will go to get payback. So, The Ex's Revenge. Do any of you remember that one? I think we had it on this channel. Reviewers praised Jakeman's twisted tale of vengeance, and now the author returns with her latest novel on women's anger and revenge in Safe House. In it, a woman turns up in a remote coastal village. She's bought a crumbling, long-vacant cottage and calls herself Charlie Miller. Charlie keeps her to herself, reluctant to integrate with the locals. If they ever find out who she really is and what she's done, she'll lose what little she has left. Charlie has served 2 years in prison for providing a false alibi for a murderer. It was the mistake of a woman in love, a woman who couldn't believe her boyfriend was guilty or lying to her. All she desperately wants now is a fresh start. So we are... Okay, so we are getting a thriller in early March, and in a trade paperback original. That I very strongly encourage that. So if this is the sort of thing that immediately intrigues you, the false identity, the people hunting her, obviously for her choice, and the remote coastal village and all that. If that appeals to you, well, then you're not going to have to worry quite so much about shelling out for a $30 hardcover. You can just skip lunch one day and buy the paperback and not worry about it. Let's see what this next one is. Don't tell me, this is another paperback original. Fantastic. You're getting affordable books here. That's great. I've heard about this book already. Obviously, as you're going to see, you're going to know right away that I've heard about it already. I have not read it. It comes out, again, in March. March looks like it's going to be a big month for books. And I am going to read it, and I am going to review it. And that's a comparative rarity. This is a subject that I know literally everything about. Every financial statement, the exact hospital and ward for the birth of every single person involved, the history, all the ancillary material, a mountain of reading. But despite that mountain of reading, I do very little writing on the subject. But I am going to review this. This is a historical novel by Stephanie Marie Thornton, and it is called And They Called It Camelot. This is a Kennedy novel. Last year, Stephanie Marie Thornton delivered such a meticulously researched novel about the life of Alice Roosevelt that at times you felt as if you were reading a memoir, according to the New York Times Book Review. Now, Thornton is back to share a behind-the-scenes and compelling look at another influential woman of the 20th century, Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy Onassis. So much of Jackie's personal story has been forgotten in the decades since her death. Thornton brings her incredible life back to the forefront in And They Called It Camelot, the first novel ever covering the icon Jackie O's entire life. So despite the picture on the cover, and despite the title, the novel is going to cover all of her life. So the decades before, they called it Camelot, and the decades after, they called it Camelot. That okay, all right, well, let's go on. Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy Onassis was the First Lady of the United States during the presidency of John F. Kennedy. Thank you. And I thought for a minute she was First Lady under Johnson. And was regarded as an international icon of style and culture. And in this book provides an intimate look behind the headlines at the fascinating life of America's most beloved family as its leading woman who shaped American history. Based on hundreds of letters, photographs, and interviews, Thornton covers the lesser-known details of Jackie's private life, including her tumultuous marriage to John F. Kennedy, the president's assassination, and beyond. Okay. Well, again, we're not going to hold the pub sheet against the book. The pub sheet has not only was that a dangler there, there was a dangler based on hundreds of letters, photographs, and interviews. Thornton is not based on interviews. She's a person. She's made of flesh and blood. But on top of that the pub sheet actually calls Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis's marriage to John F. Kennedy during the Kennedy presidency and Kennedy's assassination, lesser known elements of her life. So we're not going to hold the pub sheet against the book. Let's hear about the author here. She is a USA Today best-selling author of American Princess, and that was the one about the Princess Alice. Roosevelt's daughter was semi-sarcastically called Princess Alice because she could do no wrong. And a high school history teacher. She lives in Alaska with her husband and daughter. Okay. So this is her second book, and it is a novel about Jackie O. And we'll see. I am going to read this, and I'm going to review it in March, and we will see if it's true. I've seen promises like this before. No one wants to write, or I would argue read, a historical novel about Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis' marriage to Aristotle Onassis. I don't think anyone wants to read that, but maybe I'm wrong, and maybe the book will do that. It seems impossible for me to believe that. I mean, look at the size of this thing. This is what? This is 450 pages long. So how much of that is going to be Jackie O in a flannel jacket and a headscarf feeding pigeons on a bench in Central Park after JFK died, after Aristotle Onassis died, when all she had was her children, and was an icon of Central Park and of New York City, but it's not exactly novel-worthy material. We'll see. It's a challenging thing for an author to do, so I give the author credit for that. And I will be firm but gentle in my review. So let's see. What have we got next here? Oh, okay. We saw this already. This is a finished copy from Europa Editions of Massimo Cuomo's Beautiful. When I showed it to you last time, we didn't have any cover art. And this is about a beautiful man, if I remember correctly. Miguel is beautiful. His beauty is so rare and miraculous that it has made him the object of cult-like devotion in the city. Santiago, his older brother, watches with a mix of admiration and disquiet the prodigious effect Miguel's looks have on his mother and father, on passers-by, their neighbors, and the droves of female suitors who follow him everywhere. I have the same problem. He loves his little brother, but ends up living in his shadow. Miguel constantly under the spotlight, Santiago is left to inhabit darker, hidden places, from where he will finally learn that life is not easy for anyone, even his prodigiously handsome brother. This is set in Mexico, and the story shines at every turn with the colors and mythical light of magical realism. Not a literary trend that I tend to like, but I'm perfectly open to giving it a try. And the author, this is his first book to appear in English, and he was born in Venice in 1974. That's incredible. Okay, so he has written 3 novels, and he teaches creative writing to the inmates of the Rieti prison in Italy. And this is his first book in English. Okay, great. Fantastic. So this comes out in, the date here for these things is March the 3rd. That's what seems to be happening here, is that every single book in the world seems to be coming out on March the 3rd, or March the 10th. Let's see, let's keep going here. So we're at 20 minutes almost. Yeah, we're going to have to do one tub per video. We'll see. Maybe I can do that all now, or maybe it'll wait. Let's see here. All right, now we have a late February release. Still getting February books. It just doesn't seem possible. But here I am. So let's see here. This is by Abram Van Engen, and it's called City on a Hill, A History of American Exceptionalism. In time for the 400th anniversary of the Pilgrim Landing. A new history of how the Pilgrims and Puritans shaped American identity through the generations, told through the biography of one influential sermon, the sermon alluded to in the title. In this illuminating book, the author shows how the phrase "city on a hill" from the 1630 sermon by Massachusetts Bay Governor John Winthrop shaped the story of American exceptionalism in the 20th century. By tracing the history of Winthrop's speech, its changing status throughout time, and its use in modern politics, the author asked us to reevaluate our national narratives. This is the finished copy, so it will have an index, and of course, the name that will feature prominently in this index will be Ronald Reagan. Yes? Let's see if I'm right. Yes. Okay. Yes. All right. And the author, oh, he's young. Look at that face. Huh? Would you buy a history book from this guy? He is an associate professor of English at Washington University in St. Louis, where he is also associate professor by courtesy at the John C. Danforth Center on Religion and Politics. Okay, and he has a new book. So this comes out at the end of this month. City on a Hill. And it has a cover blurb by David Blight, who did last year did a great biography of Frederick Douglass. Or maybe it was the year before last. It was a fantastic book that is, I think, just about to come out in paperback. Let's root around in this thing. All right, well, we did it. One of these tubs is now done, so we'll put that out of the way. Yeah, if this is going to be 25 minutes per tub, then we can't possibly do them all in one video. So I'll wrap this up now and just keep going. I'll see how far I can go. Okay, this next one is from Harvard University Press. Comes out in March the 10th. And this is, I think we saw this already. This is Richard Lazarus, The Rule of Five, Making Climate History at the Supreme Court. With green clouds in the background. It's kind of a nice cover. When the Supreme Court announced its ruling in Massachusetts v. EPA, a decision was immediately hailed as a landmark. But this was the farthest thing from anyone's mind when Joe Mendelson, an idealistic lawyer working on a shoestring budget for an environmental organization no one had ever heard of, decided to press his quixotic case. This is the story of one case. Those can be fascinating. If you're interested in legal history, of course you're in the hands of the author, but it can be fascinating. In October 1999, Mendelson hand-delivered a petition to the Environmental Protection Agency asking it to restrict greenhouse gas emissions from new cars. The Clean Air Act had authorized the EPA to regulate any air pollutant that could reasonably be anticipated to endanger public health. But could something as ordinary as carbon dioxide really be considered a harmful pollutant? And even if the EPA had the authority to regulate emissions, could it be forced to do so? Environmentalists urged Mendelson to stand down. Environmentalists told him to do that. Thinking of his young daughters and determined to fight climate change, he pressed on and brought Sierra Club, Greenpeace, and 12 state attorneys general, led by Massachusetts, to his side. This unlikely group, they called themselves the Carbon Dioxide Warriors, challenged the Bush administration, and took the EPA to court. I'm on board. All right, so in all these books so far, this is the front runner. I myself am a huge fan of legal histories, and I know quite a bit about this case, but I obviously don't know as much as is going to be in here. Okay, I'm going to set this aside because this is now a front runner for because those of you who might be new to the channel, this is a lot of what we do. We go through lots and lots of new releases, and so I can show you what's coming up and windify a little about them. And in addition to that, I often have these mail hauls function as TBRs as well, because I've done a lot of reading in 2020 so far. I'm fairly well even with where I want to be in terms of reading. I have a little lag to make up because of the weekend. But I often pick books from the mail haul it's just too interesting. I'm not going to put it away. And this is a February release, so I'm totally justified. So I'm going to wrap this up, and then we'll just continue. We'll go on until I run out of steam. Thank you, BookTube. I'll see you soon.